There is a moment when a woman who has gone a long time without intimacy may begin behaving differently, and the most interesting part is that she may never directly tell you what she wants. But if you know how to read patterns instead of fantasies, you may notice the difference long before she ever says a word. And before we go any further, if you're already thinking, finally, somebody is going to explain this, relax. Your FBI badge is not required for this investigation. Just hit like, because apparently YouTube needs evidence that you survived the first 30 seconds. The first thing you need to understand is this: intimacy is not simply about sex. Human beings crave connection. They crave affection. They crave attention. They crave being desired, understood, touched, appreciated, and emotionally close to another person. And when those things disappear from someone's life for a long enough period, that absence can influence behavior. Not always dramatically. Sometimes the change is almost invisible. A woman who has been living without affection for a long time may not suddenly walk into a room announcing that she is lonely. Human beings rarely work that way. Instead, the need can leak through behavior. She may become more socially engaged, more playful, more interested in conversation, more responsive to attention, more curious about you. She may start creating little opportunities to interact. And here's where most men make their first mistake. They see one sign and immediately build an entire movie in their head. She smiled. She wants me. She laughed at your joke. She wants me. She touched your arm. She definitely wants me. Brother, calm down. You are not Sherlock Holmes. You're standing next to a woman who laughed at a joke. The Stoic understands something that emotionally impulsive people often forget. An observation is not the same thing as an interpretation. You can observe behavior without immediately assigning a meaning to it. And that distinction is going to matter throughout this entire conversation. Because when intimacy has been absent for a long time, a person may begin seeking connection in different ways. But that doesn't automatically mean she wants sexual intimacy with you. She could want companionship. She could want validation. She could simply enjoy your presence. She could be attracted to you. She could be lonely. She could be curious. Or she could just be naturally warm. The mature man doesn't collapse all of these possibilities into one conclusion. He watches. He listens. He allows the pattern to reveal itself. Because one signal can lie. A pattern usually tells you more. Think about attention. When someone hasn't felt desired or appreciated for a long time, attention can suddenly become much more valuable. A simple compliment can hit differently. A conversation can feel unusually rewarding. Someone who consistently makes them laugh can become more noticeable. Someone who listens without immediately judging can become more attractive. And sometimes the person begins finding reasons to remain around that source of attention. Maybe she doesn't immediately leave after everyone else has gone. Maybe she continues a conversation that could have ended 5 minutes ago. Maybe she sends a message about something that didn't really require a message. Maybe she starts remembering tiny details you mentioned weeks ago. Maybe she finds reasons to ask your opinion. Maybe she becomes unusually interested in what you're doing. None of these things, individually, prove anything. But human behavior becomes interesting when isolated events turn into repeated patterns. The question isn't, did she do this once? The better question is, has her behavior toward me consistently changed? That is a much more intelligent question. Because attraction isn't a courtroom where one piece of evidence gives you a verdict. It's a pattern. And patterns have context. One of the first things you may notice is an increase in initiation. She starts conversations. She keeps conversations alive. She finds excuses to interact. She asks questions she could probably answer herself. She responds faster. She becomes more available. She may tease you more. She may become more playful. She may start testing the emotional atmosphere between you. And this is where the average man often becomes dangerous to himself. He sees increased attention and immediately increases his own effort by 10 times. Suddenly he's texting morning, afternoon, evening, midnight, sunrise, sunset, and during commercial breaks. Don't do that. If someone gives you a little attention and you respond by throwing your entire emotional bank account at them, you've confused opportunity with obligation. A Stoic man doesn't chase every possibility. He observes reciprocity. If she moves closer, you don't need to sprint toward her. If she engages, you engage. If she creates conversation, you participate. If she pulls away, you don't panic. You maintain your center. Because self-control becomes most valuable when desire enters the room. And that's the part nobody likes to talk about. It's easy to be calm when you don't care. The real test of discipline comes when you care very much. When you find someone attractive. When she gives you attention. When the chemistry feels real. When your imagination starts running faster than reality. That is when philosophy stops being something you quote and becomes something you practice. Marcus Aurelius didn't need to tell himself to remain calm when everything was going perfectly. The Stoic discipline exists because human beings are easily controlled by what they desire. And desire is powerful, but desire is not a command. Just because you want something doesn't mean you should pursue it recklessly. Just because someone appears interested doesn't mean you should assume consent. Just because there is chemistry doesn't mean there is a relationship. And just because a woman hasn't experienced intimacy for a long time doesn't mean every friendly interaction is secretly a sexual invitation. This distinction makes you more observant, not less confident. Now here's where things become more interesting. Sometimes the change isn't simply that she seeks attention. It's the quality of the attention. The conversation begins becoming more personal. She may start talking about relationships. She may discuss what she values in a partner. She may mention what she finds attractive. She may tell you about experiences from previous relationships. She may talk about loneliness. She may joke about being single. She may indirectly reveal that physical affection or emotional closeness has been missing from her life. And sometimes these conversations are completely innocent. But sometimes they are also a way of discovering how you respond. That doesn't mean she's playing a game. Sometimes people simply test emotional compatibility without consciously planning to. They say something slightly personal. They watch your reaction. They reveal something. You reveal something. The conversation becomes deeper. The atmosphere changes. And suddenly, you're no longer talking about random things. You're talking about each other. This is where the intelligent man pays attention. Not because he's looking for an excuse to make a move, but because he's trying to understand the person in front of him. There is a massive difference. A desperate man asks, "How can I turn this into something physical?" A grounded man asks, "What is actually happening between us?" That question protects you from both rejection and delusion. Because sometimes what looks like sexual interest is simply emotional hunger. And emotional hunger can make someone seek closeness without necessarily wanting a physical relationship. Think about someone who hasn't been hugged affectionately in months. The absence itself can become psychologically noticeable. They may become more receptive to warmth, more appreciative of physical closeness, more interested in affectionate people, more sensitive to romantic attention. But the meaning depends on the individual. This is why stereotypes are weak tools for understanding human beings. Women aren't machines. Men aren't machines. There isn't a universal button that says, "Long time without intimacy equals behavior number 7 activated." Human psychology is more complicated than that. And that's actually what makes it fascinating. Now, there is another subtle change worth watching. Sometimes a woman becomes more conscious of how she presents herself around a particular person. Maybe she suddenly pays more attention to her appearance before seeing you. Maybe she becomes more playful with her body language. Maybe she adjusts her hair more often. Maybe she maintains eye contact longer. Maybe she becomes more conscious of how you perceive her. But again, don't turn body language into a fortune-telling business. People touch their hair because they have hair. People smile because they are happy. People dress well because they like looking good. The Stoic doesn't take one behavior and build a conspiracy around it. He looks for clusters of consistent behavior. Longer eye contact combined with repeated initiation. Increased proximity combined with personal conversation. Playful teasing combined with obvious interest in your personal life. Repeated attempts to spend time together combined with reciprocal effort. That's more meaningful than any single gesture. And if you want to understand human behavior, remember this simple principle. Context beats cliché. A woman who behaves warmly toward everyone isn't necessarily signaling attraction because she behaves warmly toward you. But if she treats everyone normally and consistently behaves differently around you, that difference becomes worth noticing. Not assuming, not exaggerating, not fantasizing, noticing. There's another behavior that can become especially revealing. She starts looking for your reaction. She tells a joke and looks at you first. She enters a room and notices whether you notice her. She tells you something personal and watches how you respond. She changes her appearance and seems interested in whether you acknowledge it. She teases you and waits for your reaction. She says something slightly provocative and watches whether you become nervous, excited, defensive, or overly eager. Now, here's the psychological lesson. Sometimes the person isn't simply communicating information. They're gathering information. They're trying to understand how you see them. And this is where composure becomes attractive. Not because you should pretend you don't care, but because emotional stability communicates something powerful. I can feel something without being controlled by it. That is rare, especially when attraction is involved. Most people think confidence means being loud. It doesn't. Confidence can look like being completely comfortable with uncertainty. You don't need to know immediately whether she likes you. You don't need to force a confession. You don't need to interrogate her friends. You don't need to analyze a 3-word text message like it was recovered from the Pentagon. You can simply continue interacting and allow reality to reveal itself. And if she genuinely wants to spend time with you, there will usually be opportunities for that interest to become clearer. She will reciprocate. She will participate. She will make room for you. And if the interest is mutual, the relationship can progress naturally through communication and consent. You don't need psychological tricks. You don't need manipulation. You don't need to hack a woman's emotions. The strongest position is honesty combined with self-control. And if you're enjoying this so far, do me a favor and tap the like button. Think of it as your contribution to the ancient Stoic tradition of pressing one button before YouTube decides our philosophical empire has fallen. Now let's go deeper. Because there is a difference between wanting intimacy and wanting attention. And confusing the two can create some very painful situations. A person may be lonely and crave affection. They may enjoy being admired. They may flirt. They may enjoy the excitement of attraction. But when the moment comes to actually build something meaningful, they may not be ready. This happens because attention temporarily satisfies a psychological need. It makes someone feel desirable. It makes them feel noticed. It creates excitement. But attention isn't intimacy. Validation isn't commitment. Chemistry isn't compatibility. And sexual tension isn't necessarily love. This is one of the most important lessons for anyone watching this video. Don't confuse intensity with depth. Someone can make you feel incredible for 3 hours and still be completely wrong for your life. Someone can give you enormous attention and still have no intention of building anything with you. Someone can flirt with you and still not want a relationship. And someone can genuinely desire you while simultaneously being emotionally unavailable. That's why the Stoic asks a different question. Not, does she want me? But, what does she actually want? And is that compatible with what I want? That question changes everything. Because now you're not simply trying to be chosen. You're also choosing. And that is self-respect. You are not sitting in the audience waiting for somebody to decide whether you're worthy. You're observing whether the connection deserves your time. This is especially important when intimacy has been absent for a long time. A person may experience a surge of desire. They may suddenly crave closeness. They may seek validation. They may become more adventurous socially. They may reconnect with people. They may become more expressive. But desire can fluctuate. Character is what remains. So don't build your entire emotional future around somebody else's temporary emotional state. Look for consistency. Look for honesty. Look for reciprocity. Look for respect. Look for how someone behaves when they don't need anything from you. That's where character becomes visible. And here's another subtle point. Sometimes the strongest sign isn't what she does when she's interested. It's what happens when you don't immediately reward the behavior. If she sends a message and you don't respond within 30 seconds, does the world end? No. If she teases you and you remain relaxed, does she become more comfortable? Maybe. If you don't immediately validate every compliment, does she continue engaging? Watch. Because genuine interest doesn't always disappear simply because you didn't feed it instantly. But attention seeking often depends heavily on immediate validation. This is why you should never intentionally play cold or manipulate someone by withholding attention. That's not Stoicism. That's emotional games. Stoicism isn't pretending not to care. Stoicism is refusing to become a slave to what you care about. There's a difference. If you like her, you can show interest. If you want to ask her out, ask. If she says yes, great. If she says no, you survive. Your dignity doesn't disappear because one person didn't choose you. That is strength. And if you're a man who has spent too much time trying to decode women, here's something you might want to remember. You don't need to become an expert in female psychology to become emotionally intelligent. You need to become an expert in controlling yourself. Because the moment you stop needing every signal to mean something, you become much harder to manipulate. A smile can just be a smile. A compliment can just be a compliment. Flirting can be flirting. Attraction can be attraction. And when the evidence becomes clear, you can respond like an adult instead of reacting like your brain just discovered electricity. Now, there's one final layer to this. When someone has gone a long time without intimacy, they may become more sensitive to the people who make them feel alive again. That could be physical attraction. It could be emotional safety. It could be novelty. It could be laughter. It could be attention. It could be the simple experience of feeling seen. And sometimes, you become associated with that feeling. That's powerful. But it's also where responsibility begins. If someone is vulnerable, lonely, or emotionally deprived, exploiting that vulnerability isn't strength. It's weakness disguised as confidence. A manipulator sees vulnerability and asks, "How can I use this?" A Stoic sees vulnerability and asks, "How can I behave with integrity?" That's the difference between power and character. Real power isn't getting someone to desire you. Real power is having enough control over yourself that another person's desire doesn't make you reckless. You don't need to exploit loneliness. You don't need to manufacture jealousy. You don't need to create uncertainty. You don't need to make someone chase you. You don't need psychological tricks. You need clarity. And clarity becomes incredibly attractive because it removes confusion. If you want her, communicate. If she wants you, allow her actions and words to make that clear. If neither of you knows what you want, talk. If the connection is one-sided, accept it. If the relationship becomes mutual, build it. And if it becomes unhealthy, walk away. That is Stoicism in practice. Not emotional numbness. Not pretending you're above desire. Not acting like relationships are beneath you. But understanding that desire belongs inside your life, not above it. Because here's the truth most people learn too late. The person who controls your emotions controls your behavior. If a woman's attention can make you euphoric, and her silence can destroy your entire day, then you aren't observing attraction. You're experiencing dependence, and that is something worth confronting. You should be able to appreciate someone's attention without needing it. You should be able to desire someone without worshiping them. You should be able to enjoy intimacy without allowing it to become your identity. You should be able to hear no without becoming bitter. And you should be able to hear yes without losing your mind. That is emotional sovereignty. That is the difference between being driven by desire and mastering desire. So the next time you notice a woman becoming unusually attentive after a long period without intimacy, don't immediately label her. Don't call her desperate. Don't assume she's horny. Don't assume she wants you. And don't assume she doesn't. Observe. Look for patterns. Look for reciprocity. Look for consistency. Look at the context. And most importantly, Communicate when the situation becomes meaningful enough to require clarity. Because the goal isn't to become the man who can spot a horny woman from across the room. The goal is to become the man who can walk into a room filled with attraction, temptation, uncertainty, and desire, and still remain completely himself. That man doesn't need to chase every signal. He doesn't need to prove anything. He doesn't need to manipulate anyone. He doesn't need to turn every woman into a puzzle. He simply watches. He thinks. He chooses. And when he acts deliberately. That's what makes him dangerous in the best possible sense. Not because he controls other people. Because he controls himself. And if this video made you question the way you've been interpreting attention, drop a comment with one word. Observe. Not because we're starting a secret Stoic cult. Although, frankly, the robes would be impressive. But because that one word captures the entire lesson. Observe before interpreting. Interpret before reacting. And react only when your judgment is clear. Remember, attention is not always attraction. Attraction is not always intimacy. Intimacy is not always commitment. And desire, no matter how powerful, is never an excuse to surrender your judgment. A woman can crave connection. A man can crave connection. Both are human. The difference is what you do with the feeling. The undisciplined person is pulled by it. The manipulator exploits it. The insecure person becomes addicted to it. But the Stoic, he acknowledges it, he understands it, he respects it, and he remains in control. Because you were never meant to become a slave to another person's attention. You were meant to become sovereign over your own. If you've made it this far, you've officially survived the part of YouTube where everyone else clicked away looking for a video titled, 5 Signs She Secretly Wants You. So subscribe if you want the deeper version, the version that doesn't just teach you how to read people, but teaches you how to read yourself. Master your reactions, master your impulses, master your need for validation. And suddenly, the world becomes much easier to understand. Because the strongest man isn't the man who can make everyone desire him. It's the man who doesn't need everyone to. He can recognize attraction without becoming obsessed with it. He can receive attention without becoming addicted to it. He can experience intimacy without losing himself inside it. And he can walk away from what isn't meant for him without begging reality to change. That is the Stoic advantage. Not controlling her. Not manipulating her. Not decoding every movement. Controlling yourself. Because when you master yourself, you no longer need to chase every signal. You simply watch. You understand. And then you choose. Master yourself. Everything else follows.